No matter what you think of me, it's only half of what I am. I'm the greatest, I'll set you free to sin, and I won't give a damn. I expect complete conformity, or I'll cast you aside. I spit upon your decency and swallow up your pride.
Good evening, everybody. So welcome to Modern Day Debate. Tonight we're going to be debating, is Christianity true? And to start us out, we have Chris on the floor. So thank you so much for being here, Chris, and you have up to 6 minutes.
Thank you very much. So my name's Chris. I'm actually based in the UK. So for me, it's about 1 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
So do bear with me. So ask you to be gracious for that. So the thesis for today's topic is Christianity true? And I believe that if Christianity is true, if the Christian triune God of the Bible exists, because if the Christian triune God of the Bible does not exist, then Christianity itself cannot be true. Now, before we can look at evidences and proofs for the existence of God, we must first of all consider the different worldviews involved, as our worldview determines our nature of reality and our methodology for interpreting evidence. So a Christian has a biblical worldview. This is a belief in the biblical worldview as the presuppositions that the triune God exists, that this God has given us natural revelation, i.e. the universe that we live in, and special revelation, i.e. the Bible, and that the supernatural exists. The atheist also has a worldview that is based upon naturalism, and I'll ask you guys to clarify exactly what you mean by atheism, and therefore whatever evidence I bring, they will interpret that evidence in light of their worldview. For example, if they ask me to perform a miracle, for example, to levitate the building that they're sat in now, and that happens, they perhaps may not be convinced, because they may say that, well, the building didn't really levitate, but I tricked them, it was an illusion. Or that they might say that, well, there must be a natural explanation, even if they can't give us one right now. So when looking at and comparing worldviews, then we have to look at the exploratory power of each worldview. Christianity is true because the triune God of the Bible exists, and the impossibility of the contrary. My proof is that without the Christian God, you can have no foundation for the uniformity of nature, a basic presupposition for science, no foundation for universal laws of logic and reasoning in which we can have a debate, or moral absolutes. And in fact, I predict tonight that the atheists will have to borrow from my biblical worldview to make their worldview intelligible, as they exist in God's created universe. Romans chapter 1, starting from verse 20, says, "For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, his eternal power and Godhead, so they are without excuse. They are without an apologetic. They are without a defense," would be probably a better translation from the original language. Now, Albert Einstein said, "In the view of such harmony in the cosmos, which I have with my limited human mind, and an ability to recognize that they are people who say there is no God, but what makes me really angry is that they quote me for supporting of such views." Sir Isaac Newton says that this most beautiful system of the sun, planets, and comets can only proceed from the counsel and dominion of an intelligent and powerful being. The more we study nature, the more we understand of the amazing work of our Creator, God. And so just one last thing I want to quickly add, if I may, is that when the atheists, usually in my conversation with atheists anyway, they will bring up like the problem of evil. They will say, well, how can a God exist when evil things happen to children and things like that? But first of all, they need to give us a foundation of why the suffering of children is evil. Because I believe without a Christian worldview, you have no foundation of good, no foundation of evil. And I'm sure tonight we'll get into that and I'll be able to expand upon that. Yep.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful meeting all of you. I'm a big fan of the page. And so to give you a little background on myself, I grew up an evangelical Christian, but I was also a huge nerd. And I was fortunate enough to get accepted into Princeton University, where I thought I was going to be an international relations major. However, my freshman year, I took a class called New Testament and Christian Origins and realized that I loved learning about Christianity from an academic perspective. So I ended up majoring in religious studies at Princeton. And the majority of my professors in the religion department were atheists, and a good chunk of my reading assignments were from the atheist scholar Bart Ehrman. But despite this, my faith in Christianity actually strengthened as I learned more rather than become weaker, which is kind of what I expected, to be honest. But from a historical perspective, there's extensive evidence that Jesus Christ existed, died by crucifixion, and rose from the dead. Based on historical texts, the details of the stories, and the spread of Christianity, the most plausible explanation to me is that Jesus died and rose from the grave. And there's 4 different methods from the historical methods that I use to come to this conclusion. There's the principle of multiple attestation, the criterion of embarrassment, the archaeological evidence, and the early history of the spread of Christianity. All these point to Christianity being true, which is what we're debating tonight. So I'll start with multiple attestation. So the principle of multiple attestation refers to the presence of a story or teaching in multiple independent sources. And the logic is straightforward. If multiple sources report the same event or saying that are independent, it is less likely that the event or saying was invented by a single author. In the case of Christianity, key events and teachings of Jesus are attested in multiple sources. These include not only the canonical Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, but also non-canonical Gospels and early Christian writings like the letters of Paul. Additionally, there are non-Christian sources, just such as the Jewish historian Josephus and the Roman historian Tacitus, that talk about the existence and the events of Jesus' life. The crucifixion of Jesus is universally attested across all these sources, suggesting strong historical credibility. And the next one is my favorite, the criterion of embarrassment. Simplest form, if there's the main characters are really embarrassing and do stuff that you're not proud of, it's more likely to be true. So the more academic explanation is the criterion of embarrassment posits that if a text includes potentially embarrassing or difficult material for the author's community, it is less likely to be fabricated. The criterion is significant because authors of antiquity typically sought to promote their heroes, not to embarrass them. In the New Testament, examples of this are the denial of Peter, a leading disciple denying Jesus, the crucifixion itself, which is a humiliating form of execution. And additionally, I thought this was crazy when I learned more about it. The first people to see Jesus were shepherds who were considered so low in society that their testimony wasn't even admissible in court. Additionally, the first 2 people to see Jesus after he was resurrected were 2 women who at the time were also considered second-class citizens. These accounts suggest authenticity because early Christians would have had little reason to invent these details in the stories. And then the last 2 sections, so archaeological evidence. Archaeological discoveries provide tangible evidence of the historical context of biblical narratives. For example, the Pool of Bethesda, that's a hard word to say, and the Pool of Siloam, locations where Jesus performed miracles, have been identified and excavated. Such findings corroborate the gospel narrative's geographical and cultural references. And finally, the spread of Christianity. All the Roman authorities had to do to forever quell Christianity before it started was to produce a dead body of Jesus. After Jesus' death, it's written that the disciples just went back to fishing. They weren't scholars. They were pretty lowly men in society. However, according to the Gospels and the epistles, Jesus appeared to more than 500 people in his 40 days after he resurrected. All but one disciple was murdered for spreading their testimony of Jesus. For them to be this persistent, despite the intense persecution, points that they truly witnessed something new, supernatural. That a man that they thought was dead and thought was their savior was dead by crucifixion had resurrected. It's much harder to believe that they died for their beliefs, for something they either knew was a lie or something they didn't have concrete and convincing evidence for. So in conclusion, from a historical perspective, it is undeniable that Jesus existed and was crucified. And based on the earliest Christians' testimonies, the scenario that makes most sense is that Jesus rose from the dead. Thanks. That's all I got.
All right, thank you so much. And since OBS updated, I'm going to do this to our speakers again, so don't mind me. If you didn't hear me the first time, because I know you didn't, welcome to Modern Day Debate. We are a neutral platform hosting debates on science, politics, religion. Thank you so much, Jimmy and Chris, for your introductory statements. We appreciate that. We are going to kick it over to the other side and remind our audience we are going to do Q&A at the end of our discussion. So if you have questions for any of our speakers, get that in our Q&A. So Rafael, Max, who would like to go first?
If you want to go, Max, go ahead.
All right, Max, the floor is yours. 6 minutes.
Thank you very much to Modern Day Debate and for everybody for hosting this. Am I still audible? I've been having some microphone issues. So, okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I just flew back from Ohio, actually. And boy, are my arms tired. I actually flew out there to see the eclipse. I traveled out to rural Ohio along the middle center line of the eclipse path. And it's something to really ruminate about, because something that was once considered a omen and sort of a sign from God, an inexplicable bad luck sign, is now something that's been studied and quantified and predicted and projected ahead into the future for up to 10,000 years. And what's fascinating to me is that it isn't the process of faith which has provided this insight into how things work. It isn't the process of faith which has made us less afraid of these formerly inexplicable, but certainly still very powerful and impactful natural phenomenon like an eclipse. It's been logic, it's been science, it's been naturalism. Is Christianity true? I'd say no, simply because Christianity itself is a religion. Religions are based in faith. Some people try to characterize Christianity as, no, it's a relationship, not a religion, but it's still a relationship to a personal Lord and Savior of some kind. And one still has to be convinced that there's such a thing as sin and as moral repercussions to their actions, which may offend an almighty triune God. And by the way, speaking of a triune God, to address the earlier pitch on Christianity, Chris, I believe you referred to the Bible of your source as your source of information of what God is. I would be very curious to know which Bible, because this Bible actually contains the Apocrypha, which is a series of different books sort of in the middle and in between the Old and New Testaments. Books like 1st and 2nd Maccabees, additional chapters of Esther, things like that. Tobit, which is a great story about a kid who finds a fish with like a gold coin in his mouth or something like that. I don't know. It's all bullshit. The point is that you have to also accept that the Bible that you have today has been changed and altered ultimately by the same kinds of power and the same kinds of theological constructs and organizations, which I would wager you don't personally jive with yourself. And yet the product of those previous manifestations of Christianity are what you embrace as divinely inspired. And I'd be very curious to know at what point you decided, historically speaking, the right Christianity to believe in, because there's been so many different forms. Let's see what else. I wanted to also note that the other four arguments that Jimmy were presenting, what were they? Multiple attestations, aka hearsay. If anybody's ever seen or played a game of telephone where a crowd of people pass a secret along, one thing you have to understand is that rumors grow. People exaggerate, especially in an environment where there's people are oppressed because they're under the Romans. People are hungrier and have to work really hard. People aren't as frankly aware, I won't say educated, but aren't as aware of how things work and how to predict things like eclipses. And by the way, when I say atheism, I mean to include, and I understand this may be a unique position, naturalism, science, and logic. That is all atheist because it does not address God. It does not require God. It does not require faith. Faith is a fallacy. Faith is the convincing that you believe something against the evidence to the contrary. And the fact of the matter is that the stories in the Bible, writ large, are controverted by natural evidence. You have to rely on faith to believe in the Bible to think that it's really true. And in order to base your lifestyle off of something, your worldview off of something, you certainly have to at least hope or wish that it's true to begin with. How am I doing on time? I think I have 1 more minute left.
1 minute, yes.
1 minute. Let's see here. Natural revelation. It was fascinating because special revelation was included right after that, and I believe it was Chris's argument. And special revelation can't be tested. You can't test or recreate special revelation. Special revelation is a unique phenomenon, and because you can't test it and replicate it, it probably isn't going to be a good, reliable source of, say, how to build a bridge, or how to survive a flood in your area, or build a dam, or something like that. It has to be a quantifiable mathematical thing. And the quantifiable figures given in the Bible, frankly, add up to a lot of nonsense about a global flood and the creation of the universe 6,000 years ago. And one rotten apple from the witness of the Bible is enough to, oh, see, now you've made me miss the word, impugn or make you question the characterization of the honesty of the source material. Impeach, that's the word, impeach. The Bible's impeached by its bullshit accounts.
All right.
Take it away, Raphael.
That's a little over time, but sorry if I made you lose your thought there. I just was letting you know you're getting close. So, Raphael, the floor is yours. 6 minutes on the clock.
Thank you very much, James, and hello, everyone. Pleased to meet you. My name is Rafael Tapia. I come from Mexico City, and I host a show on YouTube called La Cantina-del-Ateo. And I've been debating this for about, 8, 9 years, something like that. And, well, thing is, we need to think about the God question a bit further than just what one religion may say or another. I know that the topic of the debate is Christianity true? So I just wanted to make the statement that we all pretty much know that religions that come from several cosmogonies, like, Hesiod's Theogony or the Popol Vuh or the Bhagavad Gita in Ramayana and Mahabharata, well, those are anthropomorphized gods, and we pretty much know those don't exist. We need to speak about a philosophical God in order to pretty much analyze this in depth, right? So right now, James, I'm gonna go full screen with a small presentation if...
Yeah, no problem. And just to remind you as well, it's not a big problem, but my name's Ryan. I fill in just, it says James in our Zoom chats, just if anybody's wondering why that's might be confusion. It does say James, so paused your clock.
I'm sorry.
So you are screen sharing and ready to go.
Okay, thank you, Ryan, and sorry for the confusion. So, does the Christian God exist? Well, I think we need to define what we're talking about, right? Christianity, I define it, or I understand it to be a monotheistic religion, and it's centered on what Jesus taught. I should have put this in bold because the key parts here are monotheistic and Christ, right? So monotheistic, Christians believe that there is a single God, and in that case, we should demonstrate a single God or demonstrate that a God does not exist, any God. So, and the Christ thing, well, that's a particular belief that they think that it's the Messiah. Other religions related don't believe that Jesus is the Messiah. I can cite the Muslims or the Jewish people that don't believe or don't accept Jesus as the Messiah. I think we know that, right? Now, what is truth? I define truth as that which corresponds to reality or facts. Yeah. It's an attribute we assign a statement or an allegation about reality, and we think and we attribute truth to it whenever this fits or contrasts reality and it fits. Okay. So once we state something, we need to have something to contrast with. Okay. Now, if we're going to be talking about God or a God, we need to be talking about someone. Of course, if I'm speaking with Christians, I know that you guys think that God is a someone, right? He thinks, he has thoughts, he has will, and he has agent, he has decisions, right? And I think that if we're going to have a meaningful conversation about God, this being, it has to have divine power. Uh, I define divine power as the capacity of a supreme being to change the world, to modify the world with by his will alone. Like if God wants that a couple of sticks become snakes in the ground, God can do it. He can do that. I define God as a being that is capable of making the world change the space, make the world flat if he wants, only by the will alone. And there's no need for occasion to happen. There's no need to have a physical interaction at all, right? The will of God is a change in the world in itself, but that in itself is a problem because we understand the world through causality. We understand the principle of causality in us in a very simple way. And we need to delve in that with philosophy and ontology. Every effect is produced by a cause, I mean. We know that. We understand that. And well, once we delve deeper in what a cause is, we understand that it necessitates either interaction or a point of contact. But God jumps this process. God goes ahead and breaks the causal chain in the world and uh, pretty much becomes a contradiction in itself, because if it cannot be identified as a cause because it has no interaction with his power by his changes, then there is no logical nexus. And there is a contradiction there. God cannot be a cause and a non-cause at the same time and in the same sense. Divine power is contradictory, and we all know, or we should know, that logical contradictions entail non-existence. Entail we can demonstrate things non-existence through logical contradictions. We understand that there cannot be square circles or, I don't know, four-sided triangles or married bachelors. Well, since God is contradictory, and this is not the only way, then we know that no God can exist. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Rafael, for your opening statement, and you as well, Max. We're going to kick it into an open discussion. Just to let you all know, not only do we do a Q&A here at Modern Day Debate at the end of our debates, but we also upload these to our podcast form within 24 hours. So if you are listening via podcast and you're wondering where to hear these live, check out our YouTube channel, Modern Day Debate. I'm going to put it over to Chris and Jimmy to respond to some of what they just heard, and feel free to jump in, Max and Rafael, once we get into it. So go ahead, fellas.
All right, Chris, you want to start since you started?
Yeah, sure. I said towards the end that to predict that the atheist would need to step into my worldview in order to support their own. And um, Max said atheism was logic, it was reason, it was science. Well, I would like to ask Mac, that can he give me a how does he know that reason and science is the reason? How does he know that reason and science, laws of logic? How can he have a foundation of knowing and verifying those things?
Testability, verifiability, recreatability. The scientific method itself is a method for how to ascertain the accuracy of one's predictions. We call it a hypothesis, something above an actual thesis, an idea or a theory. And a theory, of course, is not something that is used in a colloquial sense, meaning just a possible idea or one of
Yeah,
several explanations.
yeah, it's not on speculation.
Correct.
Yeah.
A theory, I understand that the theory is the conventional word of explaining the concept in a scientific sense. But again, it's a bit professional lingo. I think a better word for it is a model. In other words, it's like a mathematical function or a model. If X, Y, and Z is true, we understand the relationships between those factors. We understand the processes and the stoichiometry or the algebra or whatever quantification it is behind how to predict the eventualities of a system. And the reason why it doesn't borrow from your worldview, although people who hold your worldview, at least tangentially, have also embraced parts of the scientific or logical or naturalist worldview or model of how to do things and how to predict things and how to really believe things, which is the point. And I think what you fail to understand is that the things that logic or reason or scientific method address, it does not address the supernatural. Nothing supernatural, nothing unnatural, nothing supernatural, nothing unreal exists, right? Because if it exists, it's in there.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just wrapping up.
Yeah. So the scientific method is based upon in induction. Yeah, uniformity. The reason we can come up with we can come up with theories. And then we can test those theories. Yeah, and we can repeat those experiments. And if the theory is correct, then we should expect a certain outcome. And if we repeat those experiments, as long as the similar factors involved, we should get similar results. Yeah, so if similar sets of some factors bring out a certain result, and then we repeat those factors later on in the future, then we expect those similar factors to give us a similar effect. My point is, in the atheistic worldview, how can nature be uniformed?
What was the question? I missed it.
So science asserts the uniformity of nature. It inserts that
Not quite.
conditions of the past
an axiom.
will be the same as the future.
Yeah, but it's an axiom, Chris. It's just the way the things science needs to metaphysically entail in order to understand or try to understand the world, like the uniformity of the world in itself, the logical laws, maths, and there are some axioms in order to do science. You can see that on philosophy of science. But what's that have to do with anything? I don't get it.
I'd like to ask Chris a question regarding uniformity.
Yeah.
And that is, how is it that again, this is the Bible, right? This is what you base your beliefs on. How is it that even with the standard set, so to speak, of 66 books in the Old and New Testament, How is it with just a uniform text, same document, there are thousands, probably, definitely hundreds of interpretations and denominations and claims to authority of being the right interpretations of this book? They all say that you can test it. They all say that they have their biblical and textual evidence and proofs. But when you try to test them against each other, all they end up doing is excommunicating each other. And a couple hundred years ago, they'd slit each other's throats over saying, what the communion or Eucharist or baptism or anything like that really meant. So my question to you is, how do you, given a uniform document, are able to explain or apologize for the different interpretations? How do you personally test and decide which interpretation is for you? What's your shopping process?
So I think what we're boiling down to here is hermeneutics and the how we interpret the Bible. And anybody can take any book, any text, and take it out of its context and use it for their own purposes.
How do you know it's out of
Well,
context?
actually, Max, I kind of have
Hand you the ball. No, you're good. I was gonna say I was just gonna jump in and say, guys, we gotta let Jimmy in here, so go for it.
Oh, okay. I was about to say. So, Max, you actually bring up an interesting point because you're right. The Bible has a million different interpretations, but I think you've been talking about the scientific method. I think the scientific method has a lot of interpretations too. People who claim they're following the scientific method come to very different conclusions. And I won't say the word because we're on YouTube, but the Fauci ouchie, I think, is a very modern example of a million different people using different scientific method coming to wildly different conclusions and people losing their mind over it. That's just an example. But I think the fact that people have different interpretations of the Bible doesn't really exclude its authenticity, just like in the scientific method. I think one of my favorite It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode where Mac from It's Always Sunny goes, science is wrong sometimes. And he shows how Galileo was a bitch because he thought the earth was the center of the universe, and it was. And I forget what else he said. But what I'm saying is that I don't know if that science also has diversity of interpretation. So I don't know if that's really an argument. I guess that's where I personally disagree. So
Science
I'd love to hear your
certainly
response.
Science certainly has diversities of interpretations. The difference is that we all, on the scientific atheistic side, have a system, a uniform system in place for how to test those things.
Mhm.
We have not only peer review, which has, again, that's human, like that's just trying its best to remove human error, because peer review is, it's fallacious at times, and it can be really, really bad. Just because something's published doesn't make it true. What makes something true is if you can test it and make predictions with it. Just like you were able to test and make predictions about how and when a lunar eclipse would occur with math and long-term astronomical observations. You can't make a prediction that says, oh no, the sun turned dark because we didn't sacrifice a chicken to Thor. What? That's where religion comes from. That's the system. That's what the people who created this believe.
Well, okay. I would love for you to point to the verse where it says, thou shalt not slice a chicken to Thor, an eclipse will come. So I don't know if that's really right.
Are you kidding me?
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
I hope they legalize sarcasm over there when you're saying
No. Because it's not only the Old Testament sacrifices of animals that the Jewish temple was built to perform, but it's the blood sacrifice of Jesus to save your fucking sins. So don't tell me it's not blood magic.
Now,
because it is.
Yeah, of course. By the way, Jimmy and Chris, the thing is, topic of the debate is Christianity true? So far, well, there is no way. If you have no way to demonstrate the contrast, the correspondence with reality, then you cannot state that it's true. You cannot say that it's true. Christianity entails the existence of a God. A few minutes ago, I demonstrated a logical contradiction, and it's not the only one. There's several other that are published. You can go to Sophia, you can go to Springer, you can go whatever. Many. It's a very, very nice philosophical discussion. So if you understand that logical contradictions cannot exist, well, Christianity cannot be true. And if you don't have anything to stand by, to contrast with, other than anecdotes from 2,000 years ago, well, man, and I'm sorry to say, but that's not history. It's not using the scientific method. It's not using the historical method. Historians don't delve into miracles. They don't deny them. They don't assert them. Because if that were the case, we would have to accept that, I don't know, Athena possessed Diomedes and gave him a lot of power in the Trojan War. And that's not the case, right?
Yeah. Well, Max, I wanted to go on one other point you make that was really interesting. You talked about the eclipse. I actually live in Dallas, so I got to see the full totality, and it was awesome. And ironically, and I talked a little bit about my college experience as a religion major, but one of the classes that actually bolstered my faith the most had nothing to do with religion. It was a class on the universe. And it just made me think of like how vast the universe is, two, the details in which the universe was created, and three, the Occam's razor of Earth, and like how specific the settings and situation had to be for human life to even be possible. Like, for example, I remember the craziest thing, and this is, you and I might actually agree on this, is where they talked about evidence of the Big Bang. And they said that they determined that galaxies that are farther away from us are actually moving away faster than galaxies that are closer than us. And that's evidence of a concentric point where all matter in the universe started from. So, and you probably believe in the Big Bang, but I believe that the only, causation of the Big Bang, where everything came from nothing and exploded out, is God. So that's kind of where I come from. And so I guess that's a really long-winded way to say, I guess I don't always see like the fact that the universe is so ordered, there's scientific law, why that automatically says, oh, then God can't be real. Is it because of the supernatural like stories of Jesus? Is that what you just automatically reject?
It's the magic. It's the power.
But
the divine power.
Yeah,
I don't even know what you're saying. But doesn't that show that there's an intelligent design?
You live in Texas and you don't speak Spanish?
Yeah, let me put
I
it
can
this
speak
way.
Spanish.
You just stated that the universe came from nothing. I would like to remind you that when Lemaitre proposed his cosmic egg theory, and Papa and the Pope Pius XII wanted to make it a dogma, Lemaitre stopped him very publicly. And why? Because, well, he said that's not how science works. Yeah, Lemaitre didn't state at all that the universe came from nothing. That's why it's called cosmic egg. It transformed.
Cosmic egg.
Yeah, it transformed from what was to what is. Man, where does it state that it came from nothing?
The evidence of the Big Bang, that it all started from a concentric point, all matter in the universe, and exploded out.
From a concentric point. What is a concentric point? It is nothing.
Exactly. It started from one spot. Well, that's why I think the Big Bang is the best evidence of God.
No. Okay.
How do you go?
That's not nothing. It's a concentric point.
All right. Let's let Max in here. This is second time, so go ahead.
Jimmy, how the hell do you go from a Big Bang, therefore God? I'll tell you how you go from a Big Bang, therefore God. And it's because your monkey brain is evolved to. Your primate brain is evolved to. So is mine. And I'll explain to you why. Back when all of our great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers were sort of human, living way back when, if they were, say, like at a little pond getting a drink of water and there was a rustling in the leaves nearby, there were two options. Number one, it was a predator, a tiger, a lion, a bear. Number two, it wasn't. All right. Now, if they thought to themselves, oh, it's a tiger, it's a lion, I better get out of here, and they were wrong, it was just the wind or something, no harm, no foul, right? But if they were drinking that water and they heard the leaves rustling and they thought, oh, it's probably just the wind, and then they were wrong, they died.
No, that's
natural selection.
Max, sorry. They investigated, and those that investigated, well, they had less chances to survive. Because when
Not
they did find
necessarily
the predator,
investigated.
they're gone, man.
Not necessarily investigated. What I mean is that when they made a false positive, no harm, no foul, right? They thought that there was a predator there, positively thought, but they were wrong, a false positive. When they made a false negative, they thought that there was not a predator there, but it turned out there was. That is less desirable because you're more likely to get eaten. In other words, when we think of something as big as like the Big Bang, notice my galaxy back here, when we look at that and say, gee, I'll bet it came from a god made in our image, or rather we're made in the image of it. We are literally using our primate monkey brains that evolved. It's been beneficial to us historically, genetically, to assume a false positive, to believe that there's something there, a power or a presence or a malicious entity there, when in fact there isn't one. The difference is now we have a different way and a bit better way of doing it. Just like we evolved from not using tools or not wearing clothes and things like that, to hunting, gathering, to then farming, to then industrialization. Now, finally, atheism and the naturalistic explanation of the world is proliferating enough to where we're understanding the benefits of it and what it is. And I do believe there is, dare I say, a numinous, this almost a spiritual or emotional value in that, because once you really contemplate these things, it's very humbling, and you get a method to really get things done and to really give you not only better answers, but more tantalizing questions.
So I
Take
guess
it away,
I
whoever
think
wants.
I think we disagree on the scientific order of the universe. I think that shows existence of a God, that he made it with such order and such intelligent design.
Really?
I think you disagree. Yeah, absolutely.
Let me put it this way, Jimmy. Let's imagine for a second a world that has a lot of things interacting with each other,
Mhm.
and there was no God.
Mhm.
Would those things have some kind of behavior?
I don't understand the question. Will things have some kind of behavior with or
Yeah,
without God?
things move, right? Because, well, there's no quiescent things in the world. Everything is in motion, right?
I mean, like, are we rotating around the sun? Yeah, we're in
No, 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 no,
motion.
no.
Or
I
are you
mean,
talking about like
everything.
entropy?
I'm referring to that everything that exists, it's in motion.
Okay.
Everything. There is no absolute zero in nature.
So is it alive?
Oh yeah, I know that.
Okay, so since
So-
everything is in motion, let me put it this way: can you imagine a world where there is no God and there are things, and the things should have behaviors, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure where you're going with this. So
Yeah,
let's
yeah. I want to
yeah.
get somewhere, but I want you to understand that things have behaviors. The fact
Mhm.
that you find some kind of order, it's just the result of things having behaviors.
Mhm.
Have to things have to respect the principle of identity. When you have the same circumstances, you will get the same phenomenon. That's not the order of the world. That's simple behavior of things, God or no God. You know why? Because it's impossible to have a world where the contrary happens, where things don't act as themselves, because that would violate the logical
Mhm.
principles, and logical principles are impossible to violate, blah, blah, blah. So,
So
do
are
you
you
understand that stating that the order of the universe necessitates an ordainer entails that you're going to necessitate someone to order God?
so I guess is that a way of like refuting my, because basically what I've heard is like the specific conditions of where life can exist on Earth, and like the Occam's razor of how everything seems so designed. You said it's just motion that
Yeah.
eventually comes with it. Okay. So, and Max, I think the guy you debated used this on you. I thought it was a really good analogy. So if we're playing poker and I get a royal flush 20 times in a row, yeah, that could mathematically happen, random
You're
chance,
cheating.
or you could
You're
think I'm
cheating.
cheating.
You're
Exactly, you
cheating.
think I'm cheating. Yeah,
Mhm.
and
You're cheating.
that's why I think it's
You know
more
how I know you're cheating?
logical.
You know how I know you're cheating?
Well, but here, let me finish and I'll let you go. But that's why I think it makes more sense
People
that
cheat.
there is some. Just let me finish, Max. I'll let you talk. You can yell. But that's why I think it makes more sense that there is some sovereign, intelligent being that created Earth and allowed life to happen, because that seems more likely than me getting a royal flush 8 million times in a row, which is roughly the mathematical probabilities of the atmosphere, Earth, and the ability to sustain life. So now tell me how I'm cheating.
Well, because you're cheating, because if you were to get a royal flush 20 times in a row, you're cheating. And the second thing is, I'll give you an example here. It's sort of a silly example. Imagine you're a pothole. I live in Portland, Oregon, all right? We got a lot of potholes. We got a lot of potholes to choose from, all right? So not hard to imagine. Now imagine it's filled up with water, all right? So you got a puddle and a pothole. Now imagine that puddle is alive. That puddle has sentience, consciousness, thought, and it explores its little world, and it looks around its little niche, and it says to itself, gee, I fit every corner of this pothole. The inside grooves and ridges I can stretch out, and I'm just right. It's like me inside the video frame. Hey, look at me inside the video box. Wow, this video box must be created by an intelligent being just for me. And in this case, the video box, it is created by an intelligent being. But for the puddle, it thinks it fits every form, and it does. But the reason it does is because it's a puddle. The next puddle, just across the road, is totally shaped differently, but it still thinks that it's made just for itself. And the fact is that when you get the right ingredients and the right conditions, and things like, frankly, a lot of time to us, the universe is still based on projections, still very, very, very young. So it's very exciting to think what life will do in the far to distant future. But Earth, for instance, is one of certainly more there are more planets. I believe this is true. I'm pretty sure this statistic is that there are more planets in the galaxy than there are stars, because there are multiple planets associated with many different stars, right?
Yeah,
and so given all of those stars, given all of the possible conditions, it turns out that life started. Ryan, you remember while we were getting on, you remember when we were getting on this debate and you had to untangle your headphones? Think of how proteins form. Proteins are chains of crazy, molecules, amino acids, right? We find the ingredients for proteins and amino acids in comets and in places like Enceladus, and organic materials exist on Saturn, Moon's Titan. So it's not only uncommon on this planet, but by the way, the only reason we know that is because we only very, very, very recently were able to discover and test that. And that's the sort of insight that the scientific, the naturalistic, which don't point to God or need or use faith or God in any way, shape, or form, they are atheistic, they yield those kind of insights. They actually start to answer the questions of where we might come from.
There are some calculations to be stated here, because maybe
the Drake equation.
Leave the Drake equation around. Just in this galaxy, we are sharing space with pretty much around 300 billion stars. Yeah, and every star has at least, I don't know, 5 to 6 planets around them.
Not every star.
In the galaxy, it's the mean, the median.
Sure.
So many stars have more planets like ours, and many stars have less planets, and the media that's calculated in. Let's put it on 5. Okay, that's 1.5 trillion planets.
I do want to let Chris jump in here. You've been chewing there, I think, for a little bit and listening for a while, so I do want to let you jump in and maybe give some of your thoughts on what you've been hearing here.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, very sort of very interesting. um, given so yeah, you talk about science, you talk about logic, you talk about logic contradictions. Um, so my question is, in my worldview, we have a logical odd God who created us in his image, and that's why we're able to think like him and think his thoughts after him and think in a logical and orderly way. So my question to you is, in an atheist worldview, how do you appeal to laws of logic? What are laws of logic?
Again, we explained that before. Usually for science we have axioms, and the laws of logic we can actually get them a posteriori. I don't know, modus ponens. If it rains, I get wet. It rains, I get wet. It's completely logical, right? Well, we observe the world and make those kinds of inferences. Thing is, laws of logic are just tautologies. A equals A cannot be A and not A at the same time and in the same way, and it's either A or not A, right? That's the three logical laws. And well, I talk about them because that's the way we research the world with reason. The art and science of reasoning, well, entails using the logical laws. We need to know how to place deductions, inductions, and abductions to make an argument for explaining the world. And well, yeah, we don't need an explanation because we see them as tautologies. Those are tools, uh, like maths. Maths, it's a framework that we use to explain the world and make some type of predictions. But maths is not the world. Yeah. And same way, the logical laws are not the world. They help us to understand the world through our thoughts, through our reasons, and through our well, our language framework. We have a language framework, and we use it to investigate the world with our mind and get to logical conclusions.
So we say the laws of logic and reasoning then are constructs of our mind, which is our
Those are tools. Yeah. They correspond to reality, but they are tools, and they cannot correspond. They cannot not correspond because, well, they're tautological in nature. Yeah,
yeah.
like
So what I'm saying is, if laws of logic are just a construct of our mind, something that we have come up with ourselves, is then how can they be universal? For example, law of logic of non-contradiction: A can't be A
oh,
and B at the same time. Yeah, that's true whether you're in America or in England, not because I say so, but
oh,
it's
I,
true
I understand where you're going.
because it's true.
We need to accept them as facts in order to understand the world with our reason. Because if we deny any of the laws, especially the non-contradiction law, then comes the law of explosion. I don't know if you've heard about that, but from any contradiction, anything goes. If you get a contradiction, after that, anything goes. So we cannot state the logical laws as absolute truths, but they're tautological. They cannot be false by themselves. Like red equals red, Rafa equals Rafa, Chris equals Chris. That's really obvious. I understand that, but we cannot state them as absolute truths. We have to use them as absolute truths. They're merely
I would say, yeah,
Go
I mean,
ahead,
that's obviously
Chris.
where I would disagree. I would say they are absolute truths because they are given to us by a creator. Um,
yeah. Well,
and the reason why that we can use them, and we do find them in nature, is because he's created that world. If it's
obviously, I would
actually,
deny that because, well, in the same way that I'm investigating the construct, the God construct, I understand I find contradictions. So that cannot be the source for logic.
And furthermore, I tried to address that point when I explained how it has been beneficial for our species to assume a false positive. And there is in fact, atheist, naturalist, evolutionary, biological reason why we are inclined to believe that. But just because we believed it millions of years ago doesn't mean that we should keep on believing it now.
But well, actually, you probably I was going to say, just because we believed it before, it doesn't automatically make it untrue now.
Correct.
Oh, no, it's
I
just
didn't
that
think you thought that, but
if you have no reason to call something true, then how do you attribute it with truth?
Actually, I want to address that, because while I was in Ohio, and I want to plug this, while I was in Ohio, there's a monument, a site called Serpent Mound, serpent like a snake, serpent mound like a little mountain. And it was built by ancient people way back when. And it is aligned to the solstices and the equinoxes regarding how the sun would set relative to the horizon in the sky throughout the year. It's very useful when doing agricultural planting, and it again is sort of special in the place itself. And so it is special, actually. And so the point is that people were able to make a long-term observation about something, like where the sun set in the sky, and determine when to, say, plant crops or go hunting or do something like that, which helped them. The same kind of astronomical knowledge that those peoples used back then still holds true today and makes predictions today. And the reason why we still use it is because it works. And the reason why we are sort of astounded when we look at an old site like that has knowledge that we still use is we think, gee, how are they able to understand a law, a fact of nature, where the sun will set and when, and still have these, crazy beliefs about spirits or whatnot, or demons or things like that, ghosts, whatever, an afterlife even. And so there's no way to sort of test that knowledge, but there is a way to test that sort of astronomy. And when we project that knowledge backward and understand that people back then understand it, that's what sort of impresses us. It's not the fact that they believe in gods that impresses us. It's the fact that they believe in something that was correct that impresses us. And
it shouldn't, because our ancestors weren't stupid.
Right.
Some people think that
we'd be dead.
Yeah,
we'd all be dead if they were done.
Yeah. So we have the Mayans, who had a great astronomy. We have the Greeks that gave us philosophy 2,700 years ago with Thales of Miletus, and everything beyond that: Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Plotinus, from which Christianic culture pretty much drew Hellenic ideas, Stoicism that gave on Christianity. Well, if you guys read, I don't know, Epictetus or I don't know, Cicero, you will find that there are very, very, very Christian ideas in there. And well, they not Christian, they were not Christian, but whatever. What I mean is, okay, we have anthropological reasons to know that many civilizations in our history purported explanations about things they didn't understand as gods. And what I wanted to say on my opening is, okay, we can leave the religions aside, we can leave the anthropology aside, because if God existed, it cannot be the one that comes in the Marvel books. Yeah, because there is the gap problem. You can make an ontological argument like Anselm, or you can make Aquinas five ways, or you can actually state the Kalam cosmological argument, or I don't know, the fine tuning that Jimmy brought up right now, or intelligent design and stuff at all, and still there is the gap problem. Even if we granted the conclusion, which is not warranted by the premises, there would still be a huge gap between that and Yahweh.
A gap between that and Yahweh, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So And we do not grant that because, well, many conclusions don't follow from the premises, right? Like you stated from the Big Bang. From the Big Bang, we cannot state a God. From what we understand as order, we cannot state a God, because if you say that every ordered thing needs someone to order it, then that person that's ordering it, it's ordered in itself. There's order
Well,
in God.
so, and I'm not sure if you personally believe in the
But
Big Bang, but even though the scientific method can't say that there's an all-powerful God, wouldn't you say that everything coming from nothing and exploding the universe is maybe some evidence there's some? And I think we're
Jimmy,
probably going to just go on
Jimmy,
a
stop.
merry-go-round where
Please. No,
you
no, no,
talk
no,
about the
please.
evidence of science, and I think that's an
Jimmy,
amazing
Jimmy,
display
Jimmy,
of God.
Jimmy.
I'm listening.
No scientist that states that the Big Bang came from nothing, in the ontological way. Lawrence Krauss made a book and became famous because he stated a universe from nothing. But his nothing is not an ontological nothing. It's not a philosophical nothing. It's the quantum vacuum, and the quantum vacuum is something. See, I mean, it's just that nobody who dedicates themselves to science states that the universe appeared out of nothing. The ones that state that are apologists and believers. They believe that the world came out of nothing from God's power. And I don't know about you, but I believe that from nothing, nothing comes.
Well,
um,
so I
I
guess
just
like
want to
I
say
believe.
that in the
Go ahead, Chris.
in Christianity, in the biblical worldview, um, we believe before that God is eternal. So you're saying, well, if the supreme being was ordered, then who ordered the supreme being? I think that's what your argument was earlier. Um, it's quite similar to the argument. Well, if then God must have been created, then who created God? If everything has
Oh,
a cause and everything is created, who created
let
God?
me let me
But
clarify. Let me
according
clarify.
to Christianity, according to the Bible, according to biblical worldview, God has eternally existed. So God has always been there.
I understand, but the problem there, Chris, was not on the eternity of God. It was on the argument. The argument presented by Jimmy was everything ordered needs someone to order it, but as someone has to be ordered. Yeah. And there's no way to bring it out. In the Kalam, at least you have everything that begins to exist, and then you bring out God because God is eternal. He didn't begin to exist. And then you state something like Jimmy states twice now in this debate that the world came from nothing from the Big Bang and from science. That's not what science says.
The
I'm curious
quantum
what
vacuum.
Jimmy will have to explain. I mean,
Well,
I
I'm
never said the
more.
world came. Nothing. But
nobody did. Nobody said the world came from nothing.
Well, yeah, believers do. Some believers do.
No, they say that
but
atheists, believers.
everything that we observe in this world, yeah. If you have order, then there must be an order. But the Christian God has eternally existed. He created time. He created space.
Says who? Says who? Says
Oh,
who?
In
leave it there, Max. That's the construct, the qualities of the construct, the
yeah.
attributes or the characteristics of the construct state that God must be eternal, that it's uncreated, that the first cause, that is the maximum of everything, that is the I don't know, the chocolate cover, man. Thing
I'm
is,
asking how they know. How do you know
they
that?
don't,
Chris?
they don't, they just think.
No,
It's
I'm
hard.
asking Chris how he knows that.
Because I believe the Bible to be, I believe that God has spoken.
Bingo.
I believe He's spoken in the
That's
scriptures. I admitted that to start with. I said in my opening statement that we have natural revelation. We also have special revelation. That special revelation comes in the form of the Bible. And right at the beginning, Genesis 1:1, it states that God created.
Chris. If revelation is a reliable way to obtain truth,
Fuck
well,
Revelation. Let's talk about
give me,
Genesis.
yeah. I'm not talking about that, Max. I'm trying to set up a quandary. If revelation is a proper way to obtain reliable truth from the world, then why are you not a Muslim or a Jew or a Hindu or a polytheist?
I'm not a Muslim because I believe
The Bible, I know.
that God has spoken. I believe the
They believe
Quran
that
is in
too.
contradiction of the Bible, and since the biblical text was the first text.
Chris, they believe that too. They
Right.
believe that God spoke through Gabriel to Muhammad. So if you have logical consistency, then you would have to believe, well, pretty much every religion.
Chris, may I ask? I don't want you to dox yourself and say where you go to church, but what denomination is the church you go to?
What denomination of the church I attend?
Yes.
It's an Arminian denomination.
Oh, Armenians. Okay.
I do
Why
wanna
aren't you
get-
Catholic?
I do
Why
wanna
aren't
get
you
Jimmy
Catholic?
in.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, but the denomination, I don't know.
All right, Jimmy,
Why aren't you Mormon?
Because
Why aren't you a Jehovah's Witness? Why aren't you an evangelical? Because you picked one you liked, or you were born into it, most likely.
Mary Baker Eddy's Christian Science, which sucks, by the way. There are many
because I believe God spoke, I
interpretations.
believe he is spoken within the Bible. And so when you, these other areas, the Bible is our measuring stick. So when you measure those beliefs up to the Bible and then they don't come and see it, then so I don't believe.
That is so interesting when I love that analogy. You say the Bible is your measuring stick. Imagine how fucking confusing it would be if we had to build things where like a ruler was based on special revelation. Everybody would have like a cubit, right? Like the king's length of the arm or whatever. it would be constantly changing. And that would be total chaos. And so when you say the Bible is your measuring stick, the problem is that your measuring stick doesn't add up and everybody's got a different one.
Hey,
Not only that,
All right,
have you
let's
realized?
hold on just one second. We gotta let Jimmy in here. He's trying to jump in. It's been a
Okay,
while.
so kind of, and this is kind of roundabout to one of your initial points. So you criticized my multiple attestation to refresh the audience. That's when multiple independent sources say the same story, and you said that is also known as hearsay, aka a game of telephone. So I guess if you consider independent sources saying the same thing, how do you determine anything in history is credible if you don't believe in multiple attestation?
It's really, there are ways and degrees of ascertaining historical events. There are things like archaeology, which you mentioned, that's a thing. We know, for instance, that Rome was in Judea, Palestine, Israel, and back then at that time, and we have evidence of that from it's been established, and it's been established through documentation, through spears that are left in the ground and pottery and writings, and I mean it's established. Now, the farther back you go, generally speaking, the harder certain things, like the harder cultural things are to prove, I would say. And history, when you say history, I assume you're talking about human history, like things that people did, and not necessarily natural history, which you'll note are usually kept in two separate museums. And for good reason, because there's different sort of, it's not that, well, I would say that natural history, or that I would say that historical cultural history would rely more on naturalistic methods than vice versa. And when we're asking something like, where did we come from? Did God make everything in 6 days? Or is that what we see when we look out at the galaxies and notice that everything's moving away from each other? When Edwin Hubble looked out and saw that all the galaxies are moving away and they all appear to be accelerating away faster from each other, space is expanding. We can then run the model backwards and find that there was more than likely a point where it happened. Now,
Okay,
for the same.
Well, can I go back to just the specifics of with
Yeah,
Jesus?
I
I guess I don't know what you personally believe, like with the Bible. So do you believe Jesus existed?
Probably yes. I think
Okay.
Jesus probably definitely existed, or he may have been many different men. But just like people can exist and then grow to legendary figure status, it happened not only with, I mean, it happens with like pharaohs. They all thought that they were gods. Fucking Kim Jong-un thinks he's a god. You can
Good golfer
exist.
too.
Yeah,
You can
the scholar.
exist and still, Rafa, your camera's off. You can
Okay.
exist.
I think
You can
Jimmy,
exist as a person historically, but then people can inflate facts about your existence after the fact. That happens all the time.
Well, so I guess, and then last one, I'll let other people talk. So do you believe in the historical that Jesus was crucified?
Most
I
probably.
think that, yeah, I mean, that was a
Probably,
super
okay.
popular, that was a super popular method of executing people back then. And so if he said something that somebody in power didn't like, there's a high chance that, yeah,
By the way,
heretics were crucified.
but we need to take into account the way that Romans crucified people. They left them for days to rot and be eaten by what's it called? The birds of that
Crows.
yeah, that to be eaten by birds, and they were left in the holes. I don't know how to say fossa común. It's like a dump of bodies. You don't get a sculpture, man. You don't get a tomb. If you're crucified in Roman history, you don't get a tomb unless you have real power in the Roman history. So I don't know. I think that doesn't make a lot of sense. I think that's it's a good reason to think that the Gospels are like some kind of a mixture between whatever they thought Jesus said and well, some kind of, I don't know, legendarization and apotheosis.
Well, I guess like, the Gospels and the independent sources, they say like Jesus' legs were broken and he was stabbed in the sides. That's why he died a little quicker. And that a rich man, Joseph Arimathea, just took Jesus to his tomb. I agree with what you said. That's how it was typically done, but I also agree Jesus was not a normal person. So I guess that was a long way to say. So I guess Max,
He wasn't a normal person. He was a cult leader, which is why a rich guy who was in the cult of Jesus, once they crucified the cult guy, Jesus, then they took his body and then put him in a tomb. I have no problem with that. I mean, if this Simon guy was part of the cult, then it makes sense that they would try to bury him. And it makes
by the
sense
way,
then that someone, go ahead.
the extra sources like Tacitus and Suetonius and Plinius the Young, well, they mention Christians. They don't mention Jesus. Yeah.
No, they do.
And they mention Christians.
Well, Josephus specifically mentioned
Josephus, that's
he was a Jewish
that's a
historian.
really huge point of controversy because it doesn't align in the philological construct with the way that Josephus used to write. He was a Jew, and well, it's attributed somewhat to Eusebius.
Yeah,
a
and then
important
Tacitus, that he mentions a man named Christus. He doesn't
Yeah,
only
well,
talk about
they
Christians. So,
follow what they call among Christians or something
I
like
mean,
that.
but that seems like
Yeah,
a
but
little pulling hair.
thing
That
is,
seems like Jesus. Come on,
I
Raphael.
understand.
Come
No,
on.
I understand that, Jimmy. But
Yeah.
thing is, the mentions of Jesus, I'm not denying the existence of Jesus. What I wouldn't
Yeah.
accept is following the historical method is miracles at all. If I want to be logically consistent, I cannot accept miracles in history because there are none.
Yeah.
Or I would have to accept that Athena, I don't know, possessed Diomedes and gave him power, and then maybe Prometheus brought fire, right? I don't know.
Nothing unreal exists. If it's supernatural, that means that it's not natural. There's nothing that exists that is unnatural. There's nothing that exists that is not a part of the natural world.
That's a philosophical view. That's naturalism.
That's my philosophical view. And so even something like our minds are just like ions, like neurotransmitters between a neurological structure, a framework. It's all just chemicals. Even something like our brains or our minds. That's why when the chemistry that happens inside of our own body to maintain homeostasis, when that stops, that's why our minds go away.
Max, I hope you think of yourself more than just a bunch of chemical reactions. I agree there are chemical reactions, but I also think you have a soul in person.
I would disagree a bit with Max there.
I don't.
We're gonna have a fight later about this because I think there is an autobiographical me apart from the
royal way.
No. It's a properties dualism that it doesn't entail a supernatural world. It's just that there is a history of Raphael. There is a history of Max, and it's between the relations that we have with other people, the world, etc. I'm me and my circumstances.
Well, I just don't want
Certainly.
Max to end up like Nietzsche, like where he's like everything is meaningless. I'm just a bunch of chemical reactions. Max, I think your
That's
life
right.
is worth more than just chemical reactions. I'm not trying to bust your balls too much, but
Prove it.
but-
Prove it.
Thing is, Jimmy,
prove it. I'm talking to
Jimmy
you, and
Jimmy and
I
Chris,
like your mustache.
Jimmy and Chris, I would
Yeah.
state, I would ask, um, do you, do you- do you think that logical contradictions can exist in the world?
Logical contradictions, like give an example.
Well, I don't know.
Christianity is true.
L-
Yeah,
okay,
okay.
yeah.
I God existing, and it's just that.
No, I think there are
yeah,
laws of
I don't.
nature. I also think God can break his own laws of nature to perform miracles. So
Oh,
I think
yeah,
only,
but-
only in the Christian,
no,
Only in
no,
the
I made
Christian
Max
worldview
mad.
would-
Don't
That's
break
the problem.
anything, Max.
You
Don't
don't
break
get mad.
anything.
It just. I'm allergic to bullshit. It's so stupid.
You didn't
It's,
sneeze at all, though. You can't be that allergic.
Well, no,
Yeah,
no,
I
no,
threw
not
up a
all
little in my
allergies.
mouth. I think we're all a
I
little
said-
dumber for having heard what you just said.
Oh, that's a bummer, Max.
Yeah, the problem is that man, there's no magic. I'm sorry, but there's no magic, and the God construct entails contradictions. Like the one I
Well,
placed.
yeah, like the miracles.
My
Like
opening.
I just said I don't want to make Max throw up in his mouth again, but that would be my rebuttal.
Okay.
you talk about miracles, but if God does exist, and can't he interact with his own creation however he feels fit? And only in a Christian worldview do miracles even make sense, because in a Christian worldview, where we have laws of logic and reasoning and uniformity of nature, can we say actually something strange is actually going on here?
Well, not quite.
Do
Go ahead, Max. Sorry.
I was gonna say, do donkeys and snakes talks in your worldview, Chris? Can donkeys and snakes talk in human languages in your worldview?
I
Because
personally
they do that in the
haven't-
Bible.
I personally haven't heard a donkey or snake talk to me. Miracles did happen. I recorded for us in the Bible. God can interact with his own creation however he feels fit. But also reason. I think there's a reason as well is why miracles don't happen today.
But-
Miracles were brought about for a specific reason and a purpose, and that reason and purpose is
But Chris, let me state it this way: if I were going on, I don't know, a camping trip, and I'm, I don't know, climbing a mountain, and I were to say, I were to bring my testimony to you, like, and you see me really convinced and healthy, and I state, well, I was climbing this mountain, and I got to, I don't know, K2, like 2 kilometers on top, and well, my gear failed, and I fell. I fell from 2 kilometers. And when I was falling to my death, I heard a voice that stated, "No, you cannot die now." And then I flew and slowly got on the ground. Would you believe that?
I believe it's
How many independent
you
sources?
telling me, I may believe that what you say to, and that may be our reception of what's happened.
And that's the problem, because I think that in order to believe something, we need to have good reason. And an anecdote like that is not a good reason.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah. I think that in order to believe anything, we need to have good reasons to believe it. If we don't have an anecdote like that, it's not a good reason. And I can restate it in a more in a less exaggerated way, you know, a less extreme. Let's say, well, I have a familiar that had cancer. We prayed, and well, she's on remission. Oh God, miracle. Would you believe that God intervened?
I believe that God could intervene. I'm not saying he would have intervened.
How would you test it? How would you know the difference if he did intervene or not? I understand you think he could. How would you know the difference? What criteria would you use?
Well, in terms of healing, I think that was a particular gift that was given to the apostles, and is no longer in play today. That was a specific gift for a specific time, and so that's just my personal view.
How do you know you're?
Well,
Sorry.
and I actually want to piggyback off because, both my parents are doctors, and obviously, like I said earlier, I was raised Christian, and I kind of thought like they were a lot of people's answers to prayers. Like my dad was a surgeon, and people shattered their leg, be like, "Oh my gosh, I want to walk again," and then then my dad could be like, an answer to prayer, sew him up, fix him up. I'm not saying that it always has to be supernatural. I'm just saying God can work and use people using scientific method. Max loves scientific method and science and crazy medical stuff. So that's, but I also agree with Chris. I think that was a specific gift for a specific time. But I also don't think that just because science healed someone or didn't heal someone doesn't mean God wasn't involved.
Okay, let me try to change the topic a bit.
Okay.
I think I don't know if you guys noticed, but you guys are begging the question all the time. Like all the time, you guys you are completely convinced that God exists. But I would like to know the methodology by which you got to that conclusion from the null hypothesis. Then no, not the Bible, but because the Bible just
That's how they do it.
Yeah, but the Bible is just
I just
the claim.
explained all the evidence that
Max,
made me believe it.
But Jimmy, I explained to you that you have an error on your interpretation of the Big Bang. There is a logical fallacy in the ordered explanation that you gave, and well, if those fail, then how do you believe that a God exists?
I still like I mean I really don't want Max to throw up anymore. But like I said, the order of the universe, and I know you say is the quantum black hole. I still think all the matter.
Nothing. Black holes were not mentioned by us because black holes were not present at the moment
or not
of the Big
black
Bang.
holes. I forget quantum vacuum. That's what you said.
You have to have stars before you have black holes.
Yes, stars create all the matter in the universe, which I think is pretty cool. That's another thing.
As far as we know, but most of the matter in the universe is dark matter, which we've only begun to understand and realize it's even there.
And have you ever read The Law of Big Numbers?
The Law of Big, is that a book?
No, it's a mathematical proof about how big numbers work. I was talking a few minutes ago about 300 billion stars and 1.5 trillion planets just in our galaxy.
Yep.
Yeah. So one of those got life, at least.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of planets.
How is that something to be amazed by? I don't get it.
Praise to Allah! Cool. Praise to Allah, Lord of the world.
Long live Christ.
Lord of the worlds. Worlds, plural.
Yeah.
It's interesting that they knew about it, but just because they knew about it doesn't mean that God was real.
I'm sorry, Max, but if I were to praise anyone, I would praise Eru from the Silmarillion's by Tolkien.
I praise my spouse for putting up for me.
Yeah. But the thing is, how do you get from A to B? From null hypothesis to God.
Null hypothesis to God.
Yeah.
How do you prove that something's there? Because atheism is able to prove.
Here's the thing.
I want to cut in here. Atheism is actually able to do something without a God. The only thing that God has historically produced is fear and ignorance. Anything good associated with religion has been done from a naturalist perspective.
Let's hand it over to Jimmy.
I don't think God has only produced fear and ignorance. I would counter that, but that's not the question. So you are correct in that, like, belief in God often takes an element of faith, but I also believe there's plenty of evidence for God, just like you have faith in the scientific method. So I'm not going to rehash all the order of the universe. I know you said there's a bajillion planets, roughly the law of big numbers. So you said one is fit for life. I still think that the amazingness of the specificity, it shows to an intelligent creator, guy who created all of this. So, and then in my personal,
guy. Why is he a guy?
Why is he a
But-
guy?
I understand evidence as a point of objectively verifiable data, which points or indicates conclusion over any other conclusion, and I don't see anything as evidence for a god. You mean it's just that you think that there is someone who is all powerful that can bring out universes out of the ass he doesn't have.
Yeah.
Come on.
From the quantum vacuum, as you call it. I call it the concentric point.
Okay, yeah, but that's not nothing, right?
Well, I mean, a quantum vacuum, we're gonna get in the definitions of it, but sure. The quantum vacuum, you can call it something, you can call it nothing, but everything came from a concentric point and boom, exploded out. And I just think that's pretty cool. And I think that is evidence of God. I think also science could also be involved.
I think that
Listen, I think we're gonna have to agree to disagree on this. And I
Well-
look at the Marvel, the universe, and I think it's amazing God's creation. And you look at it just, oh, chaotic disorder science.
Let me try to put it this way. We both agree that there is a cause for our universe. The thing is, I think that it's a natural phenomena from from reality, and you think that it's a someone with agency, with thoughts, with will, with superpowers, and the sun.
And a penis.
Oh, well, I don't know about the penis.
Oh my gosh.
Well, he's a guy, right? He's got.
I don't know. I don't know why.
But the
I don't know if
Bible
God has
describes- the
genitalia.
Bible describes
maybe
as
we
a
should
spirit.
start using they them pronouns for God. I don't know.
The Bible describes God as a spirit. However, God just is God likes to be referred to. He appeared as a man in the form of Jesus. He's referred to as father and things like that. So obviously, in the Bible, it does give it a male. So
Actually, when God
person.
appears, when
but
God
in substance, in being, he's a spirit.
and yet when God physically appears to Moses on the mountain, he just shows him his back, as the record says. The story goes, the back as in part of his body, and so.
Well, it's interesting because I work for a comedy show and our host talked about it. Like, Jimmy's just got to have a penis. And you know what? That's not something I've ever thought about. So I guess have you?
Let's go one step further. Let's go one step further.
Testicles. Does he have big, hairy testicles?
Does the Jewish God? What does the Jewish God's penis look like? Is
is it circumcised or not?
Yeah, he should have circumcised. But let's not get off the topic here.
Oh no, I want to talk about God's penis.
Let's stay on topic.
Penis.
We are going
Is it circumcised? Does he shave his pubes? God's penis.
Mary, do you know? Mary, do you know?
I want to entertain the idea.
All right. Before we completely go off the rails, I'm sure it's perfect, whatever it is. All right.
Talk slowly.
All right. So before we go into Q&A, if you guys have any other things you'd like to wrap up, you guys are welcome to keep having a discussion.
I'd like to wrap up God's penis. Maybe then Jesus would have been born, so we wouldn't have this Christianity nonsense.
Oh man, I opened
Too
the
little,
door.
too late.
Oh, the door was so wide for you. I'm so sorry. All right, go ahead, Rafael. Wheel us in.
Okay. Then I'm gonna try to make it short. Even if we were to grant a resurrection, I put it this way. I don't know. John Smith. He's just great. He never says lies, and he stated that he was gonna be killed, and that he was gonna rise from the dead 3 days later. And well, since he's an influencer and he's really famous and he has fame that he never lies, then there's a bunch of scientists and TV networks and everything is under video camera. And then 3 days later, John Smith rises from the dead. Scientists are baffled. The world is baffled. Okay. What can we say is the cause of that? Logically, because scientifically we cannot say anything. We don't know what happened. We just simply know that the guy started to rot, and then he just unrotted and started walking. He's alive, and he was dead. He was checked dead in front of the world. So he rises and walks away from the lab. What can you say about that? What is the cause of that? How do you make a logical nexus to whatever you want to make a logical nexus?
Like John, did you say John Smith?
Yeah, I said John Smith. I
Oh, the
took it away
one.
from Jesus. I took it
Yeah.
away from Jesus, and I brought a guy that says no lies, that has fame, that he never says lies. He said that he was going to die, and he died. And then he rose from the dead 3 days later. And what can you say?
Did he
Cause
die
of
again?
that?
I'll be honest. I don't know much about Mormonism other than the creators of South Park made a hilarious play
I'm not
about it.
trying Mormonism. This is a
Joseph Smith.
yeah, no. Yeah, John Smith, I stated, and
Oh my
I,
gosh.
I
Okay.
said John
I'm
Smith, and I
sorry.
said
I mixed
today,
that up.
we
I
have
thought you were
camera.
talking about that.
I'm talking about an influencer. I'm talking.
Oh, okay.
It's a mental exercise, man. I'm talking about a hypothetical guy called John Smith that never lied, died. He promised to rise 3 days later. He rose from the dead 3 days later. What can you say was the cause?
Well, did he then later die?
You don't know. You don't know where he is. He just walked away from the lab, and even as he was followed, he somehow disappeared. The world watched him walk. So what is the logical nexus? What is the cause of that resurrection?
Is this a real person or are you doing like a hypothetical?
No, it's a hypothetical example. It's
Oh,
an
okay.
exercise.
Well then, yeah, that sounds like another version of Jesus. But
Yeah, well, now, what can you say is the cause of that resurrection?
well, I mean, that's more deeply theological, to die for our sins and
Why?
prove the existent life.
Why would it be
Well,
more theological? It's just even if we grant the resurrection of anyone, there is no logical nexus between that happened and God exists.
that Jesus rose from the dead, that doesn't mean God
Yes.
exists.
Yes, because let me tell you something. If someone states, I am, although he never said that, but whatever. If somebody says, I am the Son of God, does that mean he is the Son of God?
If someone says they're the Son of God, does that automatically mean the Son of God? Of course not.
All right.
Okay.
I think we
Prosecution
should
rest.
jump into our Q&A. So thank you to our panel. Yes, thank you to Rafael, Max, Chris, Jimmy, for you guys coming out and having the discussion. It's been a lot of fun. Yeah, what had said in the chat something funny, which because I think there's been a lot of fun things said tonight. He said he had an identical twin who wasn't dead. I thought that was funty. Anyway,
That's more probable.
I thought that was. I've never heard
That's
that
more
one.
probable than supernatural resurrection.
I just thought that was funny. I've never heard that one posited. But let's go through our super chats, everybody. So thank you everybody who's put in super chats, and once again, big thank you to our panel for keeping it fun tonight. Joshua Jamie asks, Jimmy, they're asking about a scientific question you brought up earlier that we could get in trouble for asking. So let's just turn it into something.
About the Fauci ouchie.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's not.
All right. What we'll do then is we'll just say eggs. Good for you. They're bad for you. It seems like sometimes when I was a kid they said yes, sometimes they said no. And when I say that, I just meant the adults in my life who were probably referencing, I'm sure, people. But let's just.
I actually saw that super chat, and I will say,
Yeah.
in terms of service friendly, that they said it's changed because of the scientific process and new evidence. But I don't know if you know, at every point of time with the current evidence, there's always been completely dissenting views. So that's not really relevant, in my opinion.
Just a minute. It's not completely dissenting. Thing is, we work with paradigms, we work with explanations. That's what a theory is, an explanation and a framework in order to understand the world. And from there, develop hypothesis, experimentation, prediction. And if those work, then we say the theory is scientific. It's true in its sense.
But you could still come to different conclusions, even if they're similar.
Yeah, I understand, but different conclusions come on with different predictions. And well, those that come true, well, give more power to that particular explanation. So what can change is the depth of the paradigm, of the explanation, of the framework. You see, I understand knowledge as probabilistic and contingent for more evidence that could either change it, augment it, correct it, or even deny it. But that even deny it cannot deny the facts and the measurements. Facts and measurements are just the same all over time, and they just get finer and finer as our tools develop further and further.
Any other thoughts on the
And
other side?
I think
Okay, go ahead.
I think one interesting distinction to make is that if you use faith as a model of obtaining knowledge or pursuing answers, that's exactly what you get, are sort of dead ends. It's true because God did it. And it's interesting that when you use naturalism or the scientific method or atheistic methods, meaning without relying on faith or God, to get those answers, you generally get more questions than you do answers. You get further questions. Well, why is that so? Once we discover, X is true, we understand how factor X plays into factor Y, and then start to think about how that plays into factor Z, and it all just sort of snowballs. So it's interesting that the faith method yields, answers, absolutes, while the atheistic method actually yields more questions. And yet the atheistic method that yields more questions is still more useful and able to actually predict things that were formerly really scary, like diseases or using antibiotics. And I don't know if we're talking about eggs, but I'll just say consent is very important. People should
Of
have
course.
bodily autonomy, and consent is very important.
Yeah,
And I don't like governments being
yeah.
involved too closely with folks.
Just to close on really fast, I would like to say that I would rather have a bunch of questions that cannot be answered than one answer that cannot be questioned.
All right, where this was for the other side of the panel, we'll let you fellas close it out. Any thoughts there, Chris or Jimmy? No?
Nope.
No? Okay.
No.
All right, let's carry on then. Thank you, everybody. And keep the super chats coming in. We'll keep the conversation rolling along. We don't have too many right yet, so there's still lots of opportunity to get your questions in there. And we'll keep picking away and get what we can out of this. So Devin Cordray says, nothing brings people together like a common enemy. Not sure at what point of the debate he had put that in there, but thoughts on this?
What did we
disagree.
both think?
I
The
disagree.
narratives, then I don't disagree, because the narratives have worked over time in order to make us join hands and do something. And even if the common enemy is imaginary, it sometimes brings people together for the wrong reasons. I'm sorry, Jimmy, I interrupted you.
Well, I think common enemy can bring people together. I think a common thing you love bring people together. Look at any sporting event in America.
That's not mutually exclusive.
Well, I was just giving a fun example.
Okay.
I'm not really sure what they were saying.
Okay.
No, that's no, that's fun. We'll carry on from there since it's more of a statement than a question. But thanks for your first super chat, your first interaction on the channel there, Devin. We appreciate it. Sean666, the name just triggers Iron Maiden for me. I got to be careful here. There are errors in DNA. How could a god have errors in DNA if there is a god? It's impossible for a god to exist because God makes too many mistakes. Do you want to handle that one there to start, Chris?
Yeah, sure. So I think in DNA we're talk about, I think it's talking about mutations, correct? Yeah, but in Atheist worldview, in evolution, isn't that a mechanism of how things have evolved through mutations, through survival of the fittest, things like that? And so actually that however, errors in mutations in DNA result in the first place from the fact that we live in a fallen world. That's why we have diseases, and as that we are living in a fallen world, in a sinful world, and so that accounts for those things.
But those mutations can, over time, be beneficial and create diversity, biodiversity, and speciation and things like that. And so why would those mutations or diversity of genetics be considered a component of a fallen world? Why are you giving it a negative or a sinful connotation when it's actually good for life?
I was just trying to answer from where I thought the person who was asking the question. It seemed like, um, so yes, I agree. Some mutations can be beneficial and lead to survival, but other mutations can be negative, and so I was just giving an explanation for the negative mutations.
All right, I think we're ready to move on from there. Panels kind of, I think, come to a natural pause there. So Joshua Jamie coming in, $4.99. Thank you so much for your super chat. And once again, keep them coming in, everybody, and we'll keep the conversation rolling along. Joshua Jamie says, there are chemical reactions that cure horrific diseases. To say something isn't valuable because it's a chemical reaction is not true whatsoever.
I didn't say it wasn't valuable. I just said I think was specifically with Max. I just think he's more than just chemical reactions. I think he's a soul and a person and is not only the result of random scientific existence. I think, I think you matter. I don't think the scientific method without a God, then nothing matters, where Nietzsche went mad, where he thought too hard about it. Everything is meaningless. Everything is meaningless. I'm not saying you're thinking that, but I guess I'm curious, like, where you derive deeper meaning, like, what do you think your purpose of existence is from an atheistic point of view? I'm
Listen.
genuinely curious. I'm not saying like, oh, I don't know a lot about you.
I don't know how a toaster works, and you want me to explain to you the meaning of life? Like, give me a fucking break. Like, the meaning of life, I don't know.
Well, what do you feel like your own purpose is?
I mean, Earth is really cool right now. There's a lot of good music coming out of like the Asia region. It's the beginning of my little sister.
Max, I think
my
got
little,
a hiccup, or I did.
Am I back? Am I audible?
Yes, you.
Yeah, I've heard you fine the whole
I
time.
can hear you perfectly well.
I think I was Raphael.
No worries.
Okay.
Continue,
Okay.
Max.
Well, I'll keep going in order to not have a dead sound moment. So,
sorry. I think
Jamie,
Max
if
was
you
right
can
in the
hear
middle of.
this,
He was
I
right
hope
in
you
the middle
can.
of his sentence.
I don't think that
I don't think you can
being.
hear us.
Oh, come on. I'm
doubt
sorry.
it. It's okay,
looks
Max.
frozen to
If
me.
you remember what you were saying, yeah, he was right in the
I'm
middle
having a
of his
problem.
statement. But yeah, I think it may be a good idea just to back out.
Can you guys-
Maybe chat Rafa. I say Rafa, you cannot hear us. There, I sent him that in the chat there, and I was just explaining the meaning of life, the purpose of life. I mean, I think my little sister was born in 2001, and it was recently her birthday, and there's been a human being in space every single day, well, in low Earth orbit, every single day of her entire life. And no other human generation prior to hers has been able to say that. And the fact that there's just so much knowledge and things to be learned and discoveries to be made, I hate to say it, but it's like a high for me. It's like it's an addiction. It really is. It's something that sort of gets those endorphins going. And not only that, but it's something that can benefit not only discoveries can benefit not only yourself, maybe financially or something. If you find like iridium on an asteroid, if we go and we mine that and we use that in some way that benefits people writ large, I mean, yeah, it's a good thing. It's people celebrate their victories, right? We've done that ever since, like, we have like the native people with like celebrating the hunt, like with the dance and stuff. It's sort of, I mean, that really is the meaning of life. You don't need God to have a meaning of life.
I'm sorry about that. I got a hiccup on my internet connection.
No worries. Do you have anything to add on the other side of the panel before we carry on, or Raphael?
Well, I want to say that being just chemical reactions doesn't entail nihilism, doesn't entail that there is no value, that there is no person, that there is no biographical me, there is no circumstance, there is no history or love. I think it doesn't. The thing that we're made of, I don't know, chemical reactions, that doesn't devalue our way in the world. And I would state that. Being given a purpose, I don't find it particularly likable. I mean, I'm sorry for my bad English, but I wouldn't want my parents to tell me, well, Rafael, your purpose in life is, I don't know, to be a dentist. Like, why? I want to decide on my own. So I wouldn't like it to be dictated. That's it.
All right. Yep. So any other thoughts on the other side of the panel, or let's carry on?
I'm fine carrying on.
No.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure because that one was.
You guys don't want to die and go to heaven? I think the purpose Christians to die and go to heaven, but that's.
Well, I mean, if to glorify God on earth, bring heaven to
Yeah.
earth. I'm not trying to unalive myself. I don't think I can say the word, but yeah, we just don't want to just die. We want to glorify God with everything we do. That gives me a higher purpose and meaning. I'm not saying you don't have meaning in your life, and I'm glad you have those things. I'm just saying I think I consider myself as a soul and more than just a random occurrence. I think I have meaning. I'm here for a purpose. I'm not saying you're not here for a purpose, but I believe in a higher calling.
Yeah,
higher
but
existence.
doesn't the Bible state that this life is a bunch of dirty rags or something like that?
Well, I think that's talking about the vastness of eternity with God. It's like this life is but dust here and gone. It doesn't devalue our life on
This
earth.
life doesn't count pretty much. It's just
It's just
I never said it doesn't count. That was okay. Come on, that was a metaphor to discuss how short life is in comparison to eternity.
Okay.
It wasn't in any way devaluing our earthly life.
Okay.
All right, let's carry on from there. And I will say, thanks for the censorship. That's some YouTube smarts you got there.
Yes.
Because I didn't think about this for the longest time, but the song I was introing the show with that contained and this was almost for a full year, contained not only the S word but also the G word. So, and somehow it made it. So I mean, yeah, YouTube's funny. That's since changed, but either way, yeah, that's just interesting. So Alex Stein puts in there. Alex Stein, haven't seen you in a while. Hopefully host you soon on the show. It says, Jimmy rules. A great job, JVT. Watch Primetime 99. All right, you have anything to say to Alex, Jimmy?
Oh, that I have a lot of things to say to that. So Alex Stein, Primetime 99, he self-describes pimp on a blimp. That's who got me, because we had James on our show. He produces a comedy show. He's known as the Town Hall Terror. He goes to city council, tests limits of free speech, and holds those in power accountable. But he mostly does it with silly things like freestyle rapping about the war in Ukraine, and singing about the Fauci Ouch. He has his rap song called the Fauci Ouch that it did at City Council. If you exist online, you've probably seen his videos because he's gone viral way too many times. But yeah, it's fun to put on the nerd hat though, because usually I'm researching like the best dick jokes on the internet, but I got to actually research, some fun history stuff. Although I'm not kidding, we really did talk about God's penis.
I just meant, did you want to say hi to your boy Jimmy?
Yeah. Well, no, I'm giving him a shout out. He's the reason I'm on this show, and we did talk about God's penis on a comedy show. So Max, I think you're a fan of Primetime Alex Stein, unless you just
never fucking seen it.
Yeah,
I'm just a fan of free speech. I just love free speech.
You just were thinking of God's penis a lot, I guess.
All right, let's carry on.
Apparently the ancient followers of the Judeo-Christian God were, because they mandate a procedure,
All right, this can't be going
anywhere.
This can't be going
anywhere.
Okay. All right, sorry.
It's just interesting that they were thinking about that.
No worries. Fax Junior Roll says they're getting obliterated. Holy. Not sure who they're saying is getting obliterated, but they spelled their THEIR, so take that for what you will.
Probably not a native English-speaking user.
Oh, sorry. Then I won't. Yeah, I'm
most probably not a native English-speaking user, because I'm from Mexico, so some people here are saying hello. Hi everyone. Thank you for the support.
Hello, everybody.
Hola, buenos noches.
I have a friend that gives me a really hard time.
Hola, amigos de Rafael.
Apostrophe my
Yo puedo hablar español también, un poquito.
Muchas gracias. Sí, cuando quieran, aquí en México les invito unos tacos.
Oh.
I'm from
Good
Canada and I don't even know any French. I'm sorry. All right, so Gorgio, or I can't say his name, says, if the Christian God is not male, why is she so shitty with women? They put. That's a bit hot to the touch.
There are more biological sexes, genders than just male. I mean, look at earthworms or mollusks or most of the life on Earth by body count, like bacteria, single-celled organisms. They reproduce just fine without any of that.
Or was he basically talking about why does Christian God treat women so poorly? Well, I don't want to get too deep into it, but like at the time with Christianity in first century, when women were treated pretty poorly, it was actually Jesus would have been considered a feminist, given the early church had lots of women in power leading churches, giving them more authority than was considered normal back in the day. And the first two people who saw Jesus after he resurrected were two women. So those were the first two people saying what Christians believe is the most momentous event in human history. So I would personally disagree with that.
Isn't the story that the women saw an angel, not Jesus?
No, they saw Jesus appeared aside them, and then an angel appeared with them. Unless I'm completely, I might be having a brain fart, but
no worries.
I'm pretty sure in Mark, the last few bits there, which also aren't included in the oldest manuscripts available, state that like an angel, a messenger was there and said, like, go, he's not here. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that you're wrong.
And then
you're referring to the long ending of Mark, which is a textual variant. We didn't really get into this, but long ending of Mark's a textual variant. It is probably not original. So it's probably not what the author wrote. If we go with the rest of the Gospels, women were the first witnesses to the resurrection. And also both male and female are made in the image of God. God is a spirit, but chose to, in his word, to refer him to himself as male. And so women have respect. They both were made in the image of God, and the Bible treats them. God also gave Moses the permission to divorce, which again was seemed very different at the time, and that was to protect women. The issue of the certification of divorce was to protect women.
I strongly disagree. There are several versicles where women are treated like they are worth less than men, sometimes less than half a man. So even when they say they're gonna sell them or something like that, it becomes really annoying as you read the versicles where women are treated like less than men, even in the Gospels or is it John or is it Paul? I can't remember right now, but
it's both.
Yeah,
they're treated like shit in both. And the English word is chattel, meaning like livestock, like an animal. Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's just that
it's okay.
I
was like, come on, say chattel.
I think they've given you some to chew on.
I would need a specific person that I probably haven't got time to get into all that.
Any thoughts, Jimmy, in response to what they've said?
No, I kind of stand by my initial statement.
All right. Well, let's carry on then, and thank you so much to the panel. We have a couple more super chats to go, and then we'll give closing statements of up to a minute for each of our speakers. Pseudonym asks for both: does matter care about matter, and how, with or without God? So let's go around the panel. We'll start with you, Max. We'll give you each 30 seconds for each part of this. So up to a minute. Does matter care about matter?
Yes. What was the second question?
How, with or without God?
Because matter can care about matter without God. Because just because matter cares about matter, it doesn't mean that it's like saying 2 + 2 = 7, or really it's saying like 2 + 2 = cucumber. Like it does not follow.
All right, let's move over to Chris. Thank you, Max. Does matter care about matter? How, with or without God?
So who's gonna answer?
Chris?
Yep. I think matter is is matter. Does matter care about matter? I mean, my answer is going to be basically similar to Max the atheist answer. I don't whether Matt cares about matter or not. I don't think that's a proof of God's existence, and I don't think it's disproves God's existence. It's just what it is.
All right. We'll move over to you, Raphael. Does matter care about matter? How, with or without God?
Okay. Well, we need to understand that atoms don't think on their own. Yeah. Like atoms don't get things wet on their own. Like hydrogen and oxygen don't wet things on their own. A water molecule on its own doesn't get wet. It won't get you wet. Consciousness is an emerging property of matter. Yeah. Since we have a circumstance, since we have
10
an
seconds.
interaction with the ambient, then we care about things. We give inherent value to things, but it doesn't mean that
That's time.
atoms care. We care.
All right, thank you so much. And last but not least, Jimmy, does matter care about matter? How, with or without God?
Well, Raphael just described, like, says atoms don't care, we care, but we are also all atoms. And I think the difference between us just being a bunch of atoms and being human beings is that we have a consciousness. And I think that is God breathed. And I also think, I don't know if this is where the question meant to go, but I think with the survival of the fittest and evolution and laws that kind of contradict what people know as moral, it makes me think that, like, there's a moral law maker, a moral law giver that contradicts the laws of evolution or what we're taught about it. So that's why I think it's more difficult to say that matter or us cares about matter, cares about other people without a God.
All right. Did you guys want to chew on that for a couple?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there is a huge misunderstanding of the survival of the fittest, because precisely our evolutionary ancestors, we are gregarian, we are a social species. We understood the value of cooperation, respect, and care. If we didn't care for our siblings or our progeny, then we would have gotten less chances to survive than what we did have. So morals will come because we are a society. Yeah, not because I can't imagine people saying something like I don't know, when Moses came in the story with the stones, and they looked at each other and said, "I shall not kill." I didn't know. Man, please. Religion gets its morals from humanity, not the other way around.
Did you have any thoughts there, Jimmy or Chris, to close us out, or did you want to just carry on?
That's happy to carry on.
I'm fine carrying on.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you so much to everybody on our panel for answering the question there. And Chirag ND says, with this level of technology, if someone performed the same miracles, in quotes, on the internet, how many of you would go, that's God's work? Or that's the work of God? Yeah.
I think a hypothetical we have to come up with imagination is kind of pointless. If they gave a specific example, I think I could answer better.
I suppose some people believe that there is, I don't know, some kind of Jesus reincarnation, and then they state at you that they have, I don't know, 5 million witnesses that he produced bread and turned water into wine and walked on water. Would you believe that? Even if they have thousands or hundreds of thousands of believers?
I mean, I think I'd have to examine the evidence, witnesses, and we go from there. I don't want to say yes or no completely, but I think
that's what we invite you to do with the Gospels.
Yes.
So in the Bible itself, it actually says that in order to test whether something is true, for example, if somebody is saying that they're speaking from God, in order is to see if what they say comes to pass. If what they say doesn't come to pass, then they was what they were saying wasn't coming from God. That is one test that is given to us in the Bible. And another test that is given to us in the Bible is that if that Paul gave, is that if somebody, even if they come with showing signs of wonders, so showing the appearance of miracles, is that if they lead you after a different gospel, after a different spirit, after a different Jesus, than the one that is being given to us, then that is not from God.
Yeah, suppose it's Muhammad making miracles. Would you believe that?
Sorry?
Suppose there's some Muhammad making miracles. Would you believe that? Even if the evidence points to that, would you believe it? Would you accept being a Muslim because there's some kind of evidence for Islamism? Would you become a Muslim? I'm sorry.
No, because again, I believe
It's okay.
that
No,
there's
it's enough.
contradiction between what the Quran says and what the Bible says. So therefore, if God has spoken in the Quran and the Bible, then there wouldn't be that sort of contradiction there. We haven't got time, obviously, to go into specifics on that.
Yeah, it's okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
are right at the 2-hour mark. That's from when I started the show. So we're almost at 2 hours that we've been interacting with each other here on stream. So, yeah, we got one last super chat, and I think that this super chat really is just asking us to get into our closing statements. So, Giorgio, I'm not sure how to say it. Giorgio, thank you. After all this, is Christianity true? They ask.
Oh.
So we're going to do 1 minute around the panel.
Wait, can I predict everyone's answers first?
Well,
Is
is that a prophecy? Is that a prophecy from God?
That's my gift of prophecy. I'm saying
Yeah.
that's supernatural.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know, if you want to write it down, no, that's fine. We'll go around the panel. I think in the same order that I did before. Yeah. And that way we can bounce it back and forth. So, Max, you're up 1 minute. Closing thoughts.
Didn't Jimmy and Chris opened? So maybe we should close? Or I don't remember how the format goes.
I mean,
But the opening of the debate was like that, Chris and Jimmy. But whatever, it's your
No,
call.
go for it.
yeah, I was gonna say it's fine. Yeah, you know, we can go kind of like UK rules and let Jimmy and Chris close the show. So that's usually how that would go. You know, back in the good old days of 2000, early 2000 debate. So yeah, I'll still gonna hand it over to you, Max. 1 minute on the floor because I got you queued up and mentally prepped. Right?
Okay, fair enough. So is Christianity true? No, I don't think any of the flavors of Christianity are true because I don't think that it is testable. I don't think that it is verifiable. I don't think that it is any different than any number of cults that were historically present and presently present. Personality messiahs, they come and go, and some of them persist. And there's a variety of socio-historical reasons why some persist and some don't. One of the arguments that Jimmy mentioned way back at the earlier was the proliferation, the spread of Christianity as one of his 4 evidences that it's true. And just because a lot of people believe stuff does not make it true. I mean, I think we can all attest to that in various points throughout history. And they're generally pretty low points when no one is allowed to speak up and dissent against the voice of the oppressive majority. So I really value this format. I really value this this debate platform. Ryan, thank you for Modern Day Debate.
You're very welcome.
I don't know if we're to the plugs yet, but I just want to say that the blood of Christ has never helped anybody, but your blood might. And I encourage everybody to go to redcrossblood.org, and there you can find, with your zip code, local ways to donate blood, because that actually can help people and does save lives.
And that actually reminds me, and thank you so much for your closing statement there, Max. We do have our speakers, the ones that have given us their links, tagged in the description. If we don't have yours in there yet, I think there's one that got sent to us earlier that we're going to get updated. So just bear with us on that one. We're going to give it over to you, Raphael. 1 minute on the floor. Your closing thoughts on our discussion.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, as I stated, since there cannot be a God because divine power is impossible, so therefore, well, Christianity is false in itself, in its core. Yeah, and there may be some good ideas, and good ideas can come from anywhere, anytime. So, well, good ideas are good ideas, even God or not God. So get the good ideas, use them, etc. There is no Christian God because there are no gods. And well, live on, man. Thank you. Oh, by the way, thank you, Ryan, for the debate. Thanks to Modern Day Debate for hosting me, and I hope this is not the last one. I'll try to be here more often.
I think that would be great. It's been a pleasure hosting, well, both of you on the, all of you, honestly, but thank you to both of you for your closing statements. So let's give it over to you, Chris. You have 1 minute on the floor. Your closing thoughts.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So I'm a Christian, obviously, so I believe Christian God does exist. I believe the proof of that is the impossibility of the contrary, and I also believe that today the atheists said that in one way they have said that they believe in naturalism and science and things like that. But all of that is based upon the assumptions of uniformity of nature, laws of logic and reasoning, which are immaterial, and yet they are only appealing to the material world.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for your closing statement. And now we're going to hand it over to you, Jimmy, to close us out with your closing thoughts. So 1 minute on the floor.
Well, in debates over touchy subjects, I like to focus on things we can't agree on. And Max, I'm glad we found that we could both agree that your mustache is awesome, that Red Cross, our blood can save. So that's a good thing. And that God's genitalia is a good is a good topic of debate. So, but I would disagree that the blood of Christ has never done anything good for people. I believe that God saved us. Jesus's blood saved us from separation with him, and so that we could have eternal life with him, with God. And I believe there is historical evidence of Jesus's existence, crucifixion, and resurrection. And I think being a Christian is awesome. So, but thank you all. I appreciated the debate. And again, love the mustache.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much to everybody on the panel. Big round of virtual applause for everybody here. If you haven't already hit the like button. We appreciate that and boost us up in the algorithm. Share this out in the contentious spaces you like to have these debates. We're going to be back tomorrow with Hussein and Mark Reed. So,
Ryan, is there an after show? Is there an after show going on?
I do believe that Matters Now is doing an after show.
Cool.
If anybody else on the panel is doing an after show, you're more than welcome to let us know now.
No, I'm going home. I'm tired.
All right.
I got a
4-month-old
after show on La Cantina del Ateo.
I've got a 4-month-old baby.
Oh, you got the Spanish after show, Rafa?
Of course.
Is it going to be in Spanish? I don't speak enough.
I'm sorry, Max, but yeah, we have the live stream right now in TikTok. It started a bit late, like 4 or 5 minutes into the debate, but and there's people following it, and I didn't transmit to YouTube because I didn't want to like make a double transmission on the same platform.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Can I just say, how cool is it that we have a presenter from the UK, from Mexico, from Texas, from Oregon, from Canada? It's so neat. Thanks Modern Data. This is really cool. This is really neat.
That is wild when you put it like that. Yeah. It's a new
and
time.
those are the wonders of science and operativization, functionality.
All right. We get it.
All right, thanks everybody for coming out. Before you bring us back full circle, we appreciate you guys. Hit the notification for tomorrow's debate, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.
All right. Jesus rocks.
No matter what you think of me, it's only half of what I am. I'm the greatest, I'll set you free to say, and I won't give a damn. The fake news says now I'm a god who lives forevermore.